Okay, I'm going to kind of expand on what Matt already talked about this morning. Chefs, the first thing for chefs, to be perfectly honest, is not thinking about food waste. Food waste, their first go-to is always going to be deliciousness. So in terms of what they think, first is this thing, whatever I'm creating, going to be delicious? And then they think, oh, what are the other externalities that I maybe get out? Oh, it's cheaper, blah, 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 blah. So the way that chefs can help work in terms of stopping food waste is using gastronomy and using deliciousness as a tool for helping cut food waste. So if you think about it this way, when was the last time that you ate something that was delicious and then you didn't finish all of it? It's probably fairly rare. Or the best example is like children. Children, if they don't like it, they won't touch it, they won't eat it. Children who think things are delicious will finish their entire plate. So the way I see it is that delicious food equals no waste. The better the quality of the food that you have, the less waste you're going to create. So basically, what this involves, and this dovetails with the previous speaker, is in terms of you want to make food as appetizing as possible, as delicious as possible, and using that as your first principle, you're going to have to be incredibly innovative in terms of how you use food and taste if you want to cut down on the amount of waste you use. So these are a couple of examples of, okay, this flippy thing. Okay. No. Yeah, okay, I think you're going to have to do it. Okay, so, oh, back. Okay, so these are some of the waste products that we have in our kitchen. So on top is some rhubarb pulp, on the bottom is beetroot pulp, on to the right is walnut pulp and dried almond pulp. We use the nuts for nut milks, we take the pulp out. For the juices are coming from the beetroot and from the rhubarb. What we ended up doing was, otherwise this would all have been binned, because this is normally in most high-end kitchens, this all goes. Instead, what we did is we dehydrated both the vegetable pulps we use for juicing, and we used them and we fermented them and we made them into teas that we serve to our guests. Another way that we've used other food products has been with the walnut pulp and the almond pulp. That's all the pulp that's left after you make almond milk and after we squeeze it out. So the question is, what were we going to do with them? We dehydrate them, we pulverize them into a powder, and then we use them as crackers for snacks. Next slide. Another really good example of this kind of like nose to tail thinking that we've kind of approached to at en masse is, this is a fish called bakskold. Is everyone, Danes may be familiar with it. It's a smoked, salted, dried fish. And normally, most chefs that they use it, they just use the bones for stock. That's it. Everything else is tossed away. We instead decided, like, this is perfectly good fish. It's not cheap. What else can we use? Next slide, please. There's no more memory. That's not good. According to the slide. 9. Yeah. Oh boy. Pictures. I hope this works out. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. So go back a couple slides. Back one slide. Yeah. So normally this goes into a broth. We use the broth. But after, and the next slide shows what we end up using the broth with. So the next slide, please. Is it not happening? Uh-oh, it's thinking. Okay, so I'll continue to go on. So basically what we've done is that we've taken the fish apart and we've broken it down between the flesh, the bones, the skin, and the fish itself, and we have made foodstuffs with every single one of those parts that would normally have been tossed away, and we serve them all to our guests. The guests don't know that we're actually serving them this. Our approach is we don't preach to them. They come in for delicious food. If we happen to have the food waste in there, that's better for us. What we're hoping is that our own efforts as a restaurant and having it be a high-end restaurant will look at our practices, and other restaurants will start seeing and say, oh, wow, this is some of the best food we've had, and they've managed to not waste any food, and it's some of the most innovative food I've had. So once again, this is getting back to what Craig was saying earlier in terms of imitation, helping These high-end kitchens, a lot of times there's a lot of borrowing of techniques. If people see, oh, I'm going to try this food, oh, wow, Matthew Orlando did this, maybe I should try to do this. This is often, we see this, we've already seen this several times with other kitchens. We have a bunch of stagiaires and interns that come in, and when they go back to their own kitchens, they bring these techniques with them. And then in the end, they end up wasting far less food. Another example of how this has affected other people is that we've started a farm-to-table program for children. And what we've done is show them how our kitchen is oriented. Our kitchen, I mean, we have little nudges. Not every kitchen is equipped to do this. We have each sorting bin that says green compost goes here, regular compost goes here, everything that goes to biofuel goes here. They're small little things. But if all our chefs have gotten into the mindset of actually going in and actually saying, automatically they think, okay, which one of these bins does it go to? And now it's a very, very easy thing for them to think. They don't even have to think about it. I think there's a part that can be scaled up and that's really important for helping people cut back food waste is being able to put those small little nudges in on an everyday basis. So it's almost reflexive. They don't have to think of saying, oh, am I wasting? It's like, no, this is automatically what we do. The other thing that a lot of things that chefs can do is also in terms of media. I really can't, food right now has become such a hot, trendy thing. And especially in the US, certainly in Denmark, you know, when you take a look at these, you know, top 50 rankings, you have all this buzz. Use your power for good and not for evil. So Matt has been very, very proactive in talking about to journalists, to television, to all these media about the types of practices that we're doing. And a lot of times a lot of these journalists come, they find out about our practices, and then they eat the food later, and they see that there is no compromise in deliciousness. So what we're trying to do is be a leader in showing that we don't have to compromise taste, and still we can manage to cut the amount of waste that we can. The other thing that I think that chefs are able to do is take other gastronomic traditions. So these dishes that we've been now flipping through, do we now have memory? Are we now good? Okay, so this dish, can we go back a couple slides? I realize we're short on time. Okay, so that's the flesh, bones. These bones, so normally the bones, they come out after we use them for stock, and normally you would toss them out. Actually, what we've done instead, we've taken these bones, we dehydrate them, we pulverize them, we fry them, and then our genius chef Kim has basically fried them in so they become this fishy, bony, crispy thing that we serve on the side of the egg yolk that was on the previous slide. If you saw the pretty egg yolk dish, yes. So it's like a chicken, you know, it's like you use the bones for the broth and you use the bones for the snack. So there are ways, but I think it's really, really important. The larger message in terms of kind of what can chefs offer to cut food waste is for industries, for institutions, why not have chefs actually hired? Instead of having chefs say, oh, well, you know what, the only thing I want to do is go into a Michelin restaurant. Say, chefs, you know what, why don't we go and improve things in institutional kitchens? Why don't we go to nursing homes? Why don't we go into businesses and show them how to innovate? One of the best examples is I have a very good friend of mine who has Innovative Eats. Is everyone familiar with Chick-fil-A, which is a huge, huge food, fast food place in the United States? They use thousands upon thousands of tons of lemons for their lemonade. And they were like, we have all these lemons. What are we gonna do? This friend of mine, he used to work at 3-star Michelin chefs. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna show you what you're gonna do with those lemons that you can put into another food product, or you won't be wasting them. So they decided to make this lemon dessert that they have on a limited time basis to use with all the lemon shells. Chefs have that ability to create. It is their job to create every day. And for them, it's the idea that they can actually be thrifty. It's even like for our kitchen, it's like, oh my God, you get brownie points if you actually manage to find extra uses. But it's also, and this is going to the business side, it's a cost-saving measure. Chefs have to be thrifty. And the reason why they have to be thrifty is that, I don't know if anyone knows about the budgets of high-end restaurants, the margins are razor, razor thin. You cannot afford to waste anything. So for especially like most high-end Michelin restaurants, a lot of them don't make a lot of money. They're actually loss leaders. The other things, the branding, that all makes money. It's not the high-end restaurant. So for every time that you can find a new way to present a product that is not wasted into the bin, it means you're saving money and you're actually putting out a new product. So the one last thing I want to say is that I think what we are really trying to do at Amass is not only be this leader and showing, other high-end gastronomy and showing, the world that you can have taste and less waste at the same time. But the one thing that we really kind of want to change is the discourse of the idea of food waste. Because all these products normally would have been binned. We don't see them as waste. We see them as resources. So if we could somehow change the rhetoric, instead of saying that, oh, this is waste. I mean, Selena has a good idea with the goodie bag. It's a very similar idea to say it's trimmings or they're future resources. We can start thinking about them less as things that you normally toss away and have no value. Instead start thinking, this is a potential resource that we could do so much more. So that's the end, and thank you for your time.